What a coincidence. I'm also doing my frost reinforcement right now.
I feel like
Okay. Hmm.
most of the
Okay.
team comps today are relatively straightforward. The exception being the Dush Macchiato Cheetah comp, because that one's just a fucking slot machine. The
Yeah,
main,
I'm not running. I have no interest in running a slot machine.
yeah, because like
Like,
they're good. Like even if you don't hit your buffs, it's still actually a good team comp. It's just that the variance is so wild that most people aren't going to want to run it because it's such a fucking headache.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's another thing I
It
wish
would
they
have been
do.
nice if someone else had a Papasha, though. I was hoping for what Tay borrowed mine.
Everyone borrow Nish's papasha.
Fuck.
But yeah, just there's sort of little tricks, right? So we'll just do the opening sequence. So like I kind of mentioned, high dupe QJs, just ult every turn unless you know you're not going to get all 4 attacks off.
Mm.
The buffs that are involved just make it worth the trouble, so you can kind of do things that way. This is sort of, if you have a V5 Sabrina, you end up just sort of ulting and then attacking, but if you don't, sort of on this first turn, you just ult. It just helps you eat stab. So it's kind of worth the trouble.
What?
Do a little bit of bonus damage there. And then Suomi runs up and ults. So why do we ult here? Why do we not attack? Okay, so first and foremost, you see that -8 stability. That's from the avalanche stacks. So you don't see it now because we procced avalanche, but if we rewind, or we at least pretend to rewind,
Wait.
avalanche.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when Suomi's on the field and like someone is applying freeze debuffs,
Pause real quick. Sabrina low dupes will if you out she doesn't get the extra attack, right?
yeah, correct.
So do we still out or no?
Still ult. Still ult, because you're using it for stability break. The ult is more important on turn 1.
Okay.
Then it lasts 3 turns, and then the next few turns you can just do normal stuff. But turn 1 you need to ult. So this is the
Okay.
avalanche, right? So because Suomi's on the field, people are dealing avalanche, it stacks up. When it reaches 5 stacks, 8 stability damage, right? So that's why we just ult here. Just to stack it up. So you can see 57. Makes sense. Tololo, you need to sort of follow the turn order pretty carefully, so you ult first. I think that's pretty intuitive.
Extraction.
And then you start with skill 1. And then finally, Macchiato runs up. Skill 1. Yep. And then you just get a bunch of counters from Sabrina. Cool. All right. So turn 1, turn 2. Again, we're ult spamming on QJ, so we ult. Sabrina uses skill 1. So you might be wondering, why do we not auto attack to break the edifice? We have the opportunity to do so. It's because we want to get the
Tololo is always open with alt, right?
She always opens with ult when she has full confectance, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I've not been playing her wrong.
So here's the thing with Suomi. So we read this. The skill deals freeze damage equal to 100% of attack. And deals fixed damage equal to 50% of defense. So what we can do here is use Sabrina, this skill, to stack Light Spike on Tololo. Each time an allied unit deals hydro damage, this unit gains 1 stack of Light Spike. So gives us a little bit more flexibility as far as getting Tololo her stacks early on.
Hmm.
And then we use this. We cleanse the edifice because QJ has the dispel. Tololo Okay, make sure if you have a high dupe Tololo, you'll run into this problem. You'll have both of these. Don't ult. If you ult, you're gonna screw up your skill rotation. You need skill 2 this turn.
No, my Tololo has 0 dupes, so her ult doesn't come back fast enough.
Yeah, so but if you have a high dupe Tololo, keep that in mind, and then now you ult with Wow.
Yeah, that's something I found. Like, oh, it's refreshing too soon. Okay, that's why I just hold it.
If I remember correctly, Macchiato ults turn 2 and then immediately when it's already the next time, right?
Yeah, next time you have it available, she just ults.
Okay. Okay, so that part is still correct.
Alright, next turn. QJ ults. Sabrina. Stacks light spike again. And then sort of late in the turn at some point, we're gonna Suomi ult, Tololo. Go ahead and just sort of check the keys. So when exploiting a phase weakness, cleanse 2 buffs from the target before attacking. So we have the ability to
Also,
cleanse this
another
buff.
question for on turns where the boss is not doing the cross attack, we don't need the enemies to sit. I mean, we don't need the allies to sit in the cross range, right? Like they can
No,
go and take cover if
you
they
can
want
move
to.
out. You can move out, yeah, you can take cover. So yeah, you can absolutely move out during those turns. And now Suomi ult. You can see the way her shield gauge is moving around. That's because the shield expires as soon as she casts it. Then when she casts it, she refreshes it. So, boom. All right, so let's take a quick look at Tololo here. Do we have our full light spike? We have 7 stacks, so we'll go ahead and wrap that up. Again, we ult first with QJ. And this turn, my ult is going to run out with Sabrina, so I'm going to ult. Then I'm going to skill 1. And Suomi. And this is Tololo's double turn. So this is another one of those rotations that you need to remember. So you use your skill 1. Okay, you're going to get a skill reset here. So you get your skill reset. Don't ult again. Like, this is key. Don't ult. You got to use your skill 2, otherwise you're going to fuck up your reset. Okay, and then QJ ults again. And macchiato.
Also, if boss is in stability break and you don't have a papasha on the team, you don't need the. And is there still any point in allies eating
You do
scattered
not need to
cross?
tank it. No, you don't need to tank it at that point. It is
Because the
not
only
needed.
time you really want to tank it every time is if papasha's in the team.
Correct. Yes. Okay, it's turn 6. So
Mm.
UJ ults. Ults. And I believe this is also a Suomi alt turn. All right, and you can see the boss doesn't have any stability this turn, so we can QJ alt. Suomi skill 1. Sabrina can alt and use her skill. Tololo. Skill 2, you get your reset. And then you can see we jumped to 3901 there. That's that sort of big score jump. And then we double shot. So 39, and then we get one more counter. So 40-10. Now, I'm not going to send this run because I want to experiment more, but that gives you sort of a good idea. It's a pretty straightforward comp. There's nothing fantastically crazy about it, so the execution is fairly straightforward. But if you guys have any questions, you can let me know. You can also play around with other versions of this comp. You know, if your Tololo is not super strong and it's not worth buffing her up with Sabrina specifically, so what you could do is like, okay, well, my Sabrina's not very good, my Tololo is not very good, so I just bring Tololo for the extra bit of damage. She's not going to be like a primary DPS, she's going to be more like a secondary or a tertiary, and I want to bring another damage source, right? So in those situations, you could be like, all right, I'm taking Nemesis because Nemesis, she can shred stab, she brings corrosion damage, she does some damage of her own. Or let's say you have a really built Mosin for some reason, you're like, I'm gonna bring Mosin along, and Mosin can sort of add some support attacks in there. She does some good damage. She has to move last, but that's kind of its own thing. Or if you know, your name is Nish, you can bring Ulrid because she does really good damage if you actually give her good keys. So if you have a good Ulrid, that's also an option. So, you know, keep your mind open to the possibilities. But there are kind of a few ways you can execute. That is kind of a flex slot. Anytime you see Sabrina, you know, Groza, Nagant Revolver, any of those kinds of units, you're like, okay, this is a flex slot. You know, this is not a non-negotiable. So That's the reason when we put together a team comp, we're like, okay, it's a Suowawa Tololo comp, right? Because this comp is not that, this fourth option is not that important to the functionality of the comp. Or even just like, okay, this is a Suomi Wa comp, and then there's another comp that's going to be sort of like a Dush Wa comp, and then there's going to be a comp that's a QJ Sharkri comp, or like a Dion Papasha comp, right? So, we have like functional unit groups that go together. It's going to be a Sabrina Tololo comp on like a Chain Surge day.
Does
And then there
Suomi
are
refresh out
yeah.
on turn 3 or turn 4?
Turn 3. You should do it on turn
Okay.
3. 1, 3, and 6 for Suomi. So
Okay.
yeah, and then you have like the individual units, they kind of go by themselves. Like Sabrina, when it's not a Chain Surge day, she can kind of go by herself. Groza, she kind of goes by herself. The Gaunt Revolver, it's very specific to this season because it's Corrosion Week. She can go by herself as a stability breaker, and Ulrid as well. She kind of fits into all sorts of comps. She enables sort of better usage of QJ. She does decent damage by herself. She does some, passable stability damage. So that's kind of how they function. Similarly to when we say bring a healer, like Ksenia, Cheetah can almost always be just sort of hot swapped, and they perform a very similar role. You're not going to feel that much difference for most players. Are they different, and do they do certain things better, certain things worse? Yes, but most players are not going to really feel the difference. Suomi is kind of her own thing, though. She kind of functions on her own. She wants to be with freeze units, cough, cough, wah, freeze units who do a lot of crits. So, you get that vibe. So that's just sort of a general team building guideline. Yeah, and if you're like me and you built Peridia, well, her time is not yet. Like wait for it. I'm waiting for it, but it's not yet.
My Peritia is semi-built, but I still need to get better attachments for her, and it's not really a high priority.
Yeah.
It has to be a high priority because Klukai is already announced, but
Yeah, but not this season. Yeah, next season probably, or like 2 seasons from now.
not
So-
next season.
Yeah, like 3 seasons from now.
Within 21 days will be just the start of March. Next Gunsmoke will start. Klukai's banner hasn't dropped yet, so next two,
Yeah.
like 2 seasons. 2 seasons.
Yeah,
down.
2 seasons from now, she will be useful. But like right now, you don't need to worry about it. And yeah, like Vepli, there are some uses for Vepli, but to be honest, like when you're using Vepli, you're pretty desperate because she can't fill in a stab breaker role because she doesn't break any stab. So you're almost always like, shit, I don't have any more DPS, I'm using Vepli. Like if it
Vepli
comes
and
to
Lotta
that,
fall on the same level of cope. Like, why is
Yeah.
she here?
yeah, like Vepli is slightly better than Lotta in this setting, but she's still quite cope. So if you need her for cleanse, so be it, or you need her just because you don't have any other DPS units available, so be it. But there's almost never a situation where you're like, yeah, Vepli's the best unit for this situation. Like, you're coping at that point. You're already in cope. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's sort of the fundamentals of this team comp. And like I said, the other team comp, pretty straightforward. These sort of Dion, Papasha,
Sabrina refreshes out on turn 4 or turn 5.
Sabrina,
Yeah.
turn 4.
Okay.
So if you want to set yourself up to buff fish, which it is worth it. Like it's annoying, but it is worth it if you want to maximize your score. You ult with her on turn 1, and then you just keep your eyes, just look at it. Your priority number 1 is the ult every time it's up, right? That's priority number 1. If you can't ult, then you look, do I have full confectance, right? If I have full confectance, I S2, S2. If I don't have full confectance, I S1. That's the whole decision tree with Douche. And then the only other thing you need to remember is that she's kind of like Macchiato. She wants to be above 80% health to get her insight buff. So move her out of the cross if you don't have to tank it. If there isn't a good reason to tank it, move her out and cover her, because once she gets below 80%, the problem is you're probably also running the insight key, like Mosin's key, on her. So then, when she drops below 80% and she no longer has the buff, she's way weaker.
Are we talking about Mosin's affinity key or
No,
the?
fixed key, her fixed key. Or her common key, sorry, her common key.
Does anyone even have Mosin's common?
Yes, just to use on Macchiato, because it's one of Macchiato's best keys. Like, you don't build it for Mosin, you build it for Macchiato, because she's a Macchiato accessory piece. That's it.
No, I was just wondering if anyone in Omni has like enough cores. Just like, yeah, Mosin just eat 18.
I think the whales will. I mean, like, I think Tay probably, or like Nish probably has just for the common key.
Nish, would you like to comment?
I have it. I mean, what are you gonna? Why are you asking that? I have it, and most of the people with macchiato that are sharing it have it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the insight one on their characters.
Yeah, because
So
it's like
anyone
it's
sharing
useful.
it has it.
It's useful on all insight users, so like all snipers basically. Like it's useful on Nemesis, it's useful on
Mhm.
Mosin if you're gonna use her, it's useful on Macchiato, it's useful on Douche. So it's a pretty high value key, and also the attack keys are just inherently more valuable than the crit keys, because the damage formula in GFL2, it's a little bit strange. It treats attack as a minor penetration buff. So getting more attack also improves your defense penetration. That's just sort of the way they do the damage calculations. So by default, attack is just better than crit rate, slot for slot. So a key that says, okay, 5% crit rate, and then it has 100% uptime, it gives you a 7% damage buff, versus 5% attack, 100% uptime gives you a 7% damage buff. The attack key is just better. It's not like, oh, I wonder if it's better. No, it's better on everyone. Like, other than extreme edge cases when for some reason, like, you just don't have any crit, like, the attack key is better on everyone. They look similar, but they're not similar. The attack one is just better. So Tololo's key is just sort of better, in a vacuum. If assuming you have similar uptime, it's just better than Macchiato's or Ulrid's key, because even though they both give the 7% damage amp, attack is just better than crit.
Protomocals.
So let's see. We're gonna try another variant of that team. We're gonna try the Mosin variant, which is a little bit awkward because the stability shred I predict is going to be really weird and kind of unhappy, but we will try it anyway to see how it goes.